Hello, second grade Smarties, and welcome to iReady Math Lesson 20 video number 1. Today, you are going to need your instruction book. We are going to be on page 182 and 183. You are also going to need a ruler that has centimeters. So go ahead and get your materials ready, and we will get started with today's video. So this week, we are going to be using the knowledge that we have gained from understanding measurement, understanding units of measurement to compare lengths of different objects. So we are going to be using measuring tools to compare the lengths of 2 or more objects. So what that means is we're going to be comparing to see which object is longer than the other, which object is shorter than the other, which one is the longest or the shortest when comparing more than 2. So let's go ahead and get started with page 182. All right, it says, you know how to measure length. Layla found this spoon and fork with her tea set. Measure each object in centimeters. Which object is longer? All right, so we are going to use our centimeter side of our ruler. And when we measure the object starting at the left side, what do we make sure to line it up with? The 0. All right, so let's measure that spoon first. And when we measure the spoon, I make sure to line up that 0 with the left end line and take my finger and draw a line down to where it ends on the right side. And how many centimeters did you get, Smarty? I got 8 centimeters. Did you get 8 centimeters? Awesome. All right, let's measure the fork. All right, so I'm going to line up the left side with the 0. And I'm going to use my finger on the right end to line it up to where it stops. And I got 10 centimeters. All right, so what was the length of the spoon? So we're on letter A, Smarties. What was the length of the spoon? 8 centimeters. And what was the length of the fork? 10 centimeters. Which object is longer? So think about it. When we have talked about comparing numbers, think back to when we were comparing 3-digit numbers. Allie always wanted to eat the bigger number. So let's think about Allie now. Let's think about nerd ropes. Ooh, raise your hand if you've ever had a nerd rope before. Would you rather eat a nerd rope or a Twizzler that's 8 centimeters long? Or would you rather eat a Twizzler that is 10 centimeters long? You would rather eat the 10 centimeter long nerd rope, right? Why? Because it's longer. So which object was longer? The fork. And letter D says, explain how you know which object is longer. So how do we know that 10 centimeters is longer than 8 centimeters? Because 10 is a bigger number than 8. So we can say, I know, I'm using complete sentences. I know the fork, that R controlled vowel, O-R horn, or. I know the fork is longer because, remember we use that word because when we are answering why questions or when we are explaining something. I know the fork is longer because 10 is a larger number than 8. And I make sure to end with punctuation. All right, let's go on to page 183. It says, what is the difference between the length of the spoon and the length of the fork? All right, so when we are thinking about the difference, we are comparing. All right, so look at your page 183. They have lined up the fork and the spoon with a centimeter ruler. We know that the fork is longer, but how many centimeters longer is the fork? So look at your centimeter ruler on here. So we know that the shortest is the spoon, and it is 8. How many centimeters more is the fork? How many jumps did they do? 2. So the fork is 2 centimeters longer than the spoon. How many centimeters shorter is the spoon than the fork? So let's say we know the fork is 10 centimeters, and we're going to go back to the length of the spoon. How many would we go back? 1, 2. It is 2 centimeters shorter. All right. So when we are comparing lengths, remember we have talked about using subtraction to compare our whole and the part that we know. That is kind of the same thing that we are doing here. We are using our addition and subtraction strategies to find the length of these objects and comparing them. All right, and let's look at our last question. It says Zuri and Marco want to find the difference in their heights. Explain how they could do this. Ooh, I'm going to read that again. Zuri and Marco want to find the difference in their heights. Explain how they could do this. All right, so the first thing that we need to think about is they want to measure who is shorter and who is taller because they want to find the difference. They want to find what is different. What is the first thing that Zuri and Marco could do? What do you think, Smarty? Well, if I'm measuring, I'm probably going to want to use what? I'm going to want to use a measuring tool, right? So if I am measuring the height of a person, what measuring tool might we want to use? Would we want to use a ruler? Would we want to use a yardstick? Or would we want to use a measuring tape? Which one would be the best to use for measuring the height of a person? A measuring tape, right? Because measuring tapes can measure lengths longer than a yardstick. So we would say Zuri and Marco could use a measuring tape. Ooh, there's that vowel consonant E tape to find their height. Height is how tall something is. Now, I might not know how to spell that word, but I can go back to my problem and find the correct spelling. So height, Height, their height, and then compare who was taller, because once they find their heights, then they can compare, right? They can find who was taller or shorter. So let's go back and read this. Let's see if this makes sense. Zuri and Marco could use a measuring tape to find their heights. Ooh, I'm going to make sure that that is plural. And then compare who was taller or shorter by comparing the number. So you can measure in inches or feet. The number of inches. I'm going to say inches. All right, Smarty. So this is what we are going to be learning about this week, comparing lengths. We're going to be using measuring tools to measure the lengths of objects and then to compare which object is shorter or longer Or we might be comparing more than two objects, finding what is the shortest length or the longest length. All right, Smarties, remember to keep that growth mindset. Good learners do hard things, and I will see you very soon with another video lesson with comparing lengths. Happy measuring, Smarties.